And then he opened the door, and we had a sort of discussion about where or where not we were going to go.
Princess Anne, known for her loyalty to the crown, turned and fired a line that Buckingham Palace would never forget. "You are the Queen Consort, not the Queen." It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't protocol. It was a warning sharp, calculated, and rooted in a promise made long before Camilla ever wore a crown. Behind the polished walls, loyalty and ambition were about to collide. For the first time, the monarchy's survival wasn't just about the public's approval. It was about survival from within. And tonight, the truth that's been buried under decades of tradition is clawing its way to the surface, where no title, no crown, and no marriage can save them. Princess Anne made it clear the monarchy was reaching its breaking point. Without raising her voice, without warning, she cut through the centuries of royal pretense with 6 words. "You are the Queen Consort, not the Queen." Shock followed like a thunderclap. The tension didn't need words. It was carved into the stillness, into every stunned face that tried and failed to pretend they hadn't heard. Anne wasn't questioning etiquette. She was defending a dying wish, the one Queen Elizabeth II had entrusted to her most loyal defender. Camilla's rise was not just controversial. It was, to Anne, a betrayal. This wasn't about crowns or titles anymore. It was about survival of the monarchy's true bloodline, its memory, its promises. And for Anne, silence was no longer an option. King Charles sat frozen, torn between the woman he loved and the sister who had sworn her loyalty not to him, but to the legacy he was about to abandon. The clash between duty and desire wasn't whispered anymore. It was laid bare in front of every royal loyalist in that room. What Anne started that night wasn't a debate. It was a war. A war the palace would desperately try to hide, but could never fully erase. But to understand why Anne risked everything in that moment, we have to go deeper to the roots of a promise stronger than any crown. She isn't just royalty. She's the monarchy's last line of defense. When everyone else bowed to change, Princess Anne stood her ground, and now her loyalty could tear the crown apart. While the rest of the royal family shifted with the winds of scandal and moderns pressures, Princess Anne never wavered. From her very first engagement at 18, she set herself apart not by seeking attention, but becoming the unbreakable pillar behind the scenes. Over 20,000 engagements later, her record speaks not of privilege, but of relentless, invisible labor. While others accepted comforts and titles, Anne rejected them. She refused royal titles for her children. She drove herself to duties, and she shunned the pageantry that separated royalty from the people. Blunt, unfiltered, and often labeled her royal rudeness, Anne chose loyalty over likability every single time. This wasn't rebellion, it was devotion. Beneath her sharp edges was a woman shaped by an iron pact with Queen Elizabeth II, a silent understanding that duty would always come first. It wasn't about applause, it wasn't about legacy building, it was about holding a family and a nation together, no matter the personal cost. While the media fixated on the scandals of her brothers and the tragic beauty of her sister-in-law, Anne kept the monarchy afloat with her silent, stubborn service. Her bond with the Queen was unlike anything the public ever saw. Elizabeth trusted Anne not because she was perfect, but because she was immovable. Anne didn't need royal advisors whispering in her ear. She didn't need speeches crafted by a team. She needed only one thing, the memory of her mother's sacrifices, to guide every move she made. In private, Anne was more than a daughter. She was a soldier. And when Queen Elizabeth passed, it wasn't Camilla, Charles, or even William who carried the full burden of that sacred memory. It was Anne. Now, with Camilla reshaping the monarchy in ways the late Queen never intended, Anne sees the stakes clearer than anyone else. Her public challenge at the royal banquet wasn't impulsive. It was the explosion of decades of silent resistance. For Anne, the question was simple. If she remained silent now, everything her mother built would unravel piece by piece. But this wasn't just about protecting a crown. It was about protecting the truth buried beneath it. A truth Anne had sworn she would never betray. And now, that truth was about to clash head-on with the ambitions of a woman she never truly accepted. And the first cracks of that collision were about to expose a royal feud far older and far deeper than anyone outside Buckingham Palace ever knew. Before Camilla wore the crown, she wore the heart Anne once called her own. But what started as a stolen love would soon become a wound too deep for the monarchy to heal. Princess Anne had always known her place in the royal family, but in matters of the heart, she had dared to hope for something different. Her early romance with Andrew Parker Bowles was more than a fleeting infatuation. It was a bond built on understanding, loyalty, and the rare freedom to be seen not as a royal symbol, but as a woman. Yet the walls of the monarchy were not built to accommodate personal happiness. When it became clear that Andrew's Catholic faith made their future impossible under royal rules, Anne faced the brutal reality every Windsor eventually encounters duty above all else. Their love, sanctioned by neither church nor crown, was quietly buried. But the burial was far from peaceful. It wasn't just that Anne lost Andrew. It was who she lost him to that deepened the scar. Camilla, once an acquaintance, then a friend, stepped into the void Anne had been forced to leave behind. She married Andrew Parker Bowles, sealing a union that felt less like a happy ending and more like a betrayal dressed in lace and ceremony. Anne swallowed the bitterness because she had to, because royal blood demanded it, because public emotion was weakness. But inside, something hardened a silent vow that she would never forget how easily her world had been dismantled. Time, however, was not finished with its cruel ironies. Years later, Anne watched as Camilla re-emerged, not just as a figure in Andrew's past, but as a permanent fixture in the royal future. Camilla's marriage to Prince Charles didn't just unite two people, it rewrote the royal hierarchy Anne had spent her life protecting. In marrying Charles, Camilla didn't simply gain a title. She inserted herself into the very heart of the monarchy, claiming ground Anne believed should have been guarded more carefully, more faithfully, in memory of Queen Elizabeth II and the battered legacy of Princess Diana. For Anne, this was not just personal history repeating itself. It was a slow, relentless erasure of the rules, the sacrifices, and the memories that once held the royal family together. Every public smile, every polished event, every carefully orchestrated appearance felt like a stage built over a battlefield only she seemed able to see. And so, while the world admired Camilla's transformation, Anne stood quietly at the edge, carrying the weight of betrayals no ceremony could disguise. The wound that had begun with a forbidden love had now festered into something much bigger, a feud not fueled by petty jealousy, but by the conviction that certain lines should never be crossed, certain promises never broken. Princess Anne's coldness toward Camilla wasn't about bitterness. It was about memory, principle, and a loyalty stronger than time. And while Anne never forgot, the world was distracted by Camilla's new image, one carefully crafted and still deeply contested. From public enemy to Queen Consort, was it redemption or royal reinvention? And at what hidden cost to the crown's most sacred promises? Camilla's entrance into royal history wasn't wrapped in golden fairy tales. It was shrouded in scandal, whispers, and heartbreak. To the public, she wasn't simply Charles's companion, she was the other woman, the shadow that darkened Princess Diana's tragedy. For years, her very name became synonymous with betrayal, the living reminder of a fairy tale shattered. And when she finally married Charles, it wasn't under the grandeur of Westminster Abbey. It was a quiet, civil ceremony, away from the fanfare, signaling a union blessed by necessity, not unanimous acceptance. Even Queen Elizabeth herself hesitated to fully embrace it, sensing the silent unrest it stirred within the nation and within the palace walls. But Camilla was not naive. She understood that winning over the crown would not be enough, she had to win over the people. Slowly, strategically, she set to work. With quiet determination, she immersed herself in causes that touched human pain and dignity, domestic abuse, Literacy, osteoporosis, awareness. It wasn't about grand gestures or glamorous headlines. It was about weaving herself into the fabric of public service, layer by painstaking layer, hoping that, over time, her presence would seem not just necessary, but deserved. Years passed, and the public gaze softened, but never completely. For every warm smile she offered at charity events, there was a cold reminder lingering in the background. Diana's ghost. Diana's image continued to haunt every frame Camilla stepped into. A reminder that some wounds, no matter how much good one does, may never fully heal. Many, including those within the royal household, refused to see Camilla as anything more than a tolerated presence. Even her title, Queen Consort, was accepted with a strained politeness, not the fervent celebration that had once surrounded Diana's every move. To some, like Princess Anne, Camilla's ascent felt less like a natural evolution and more like a rewriting of history that should never have been allowed. Behind Camilla's public transformation was a relentless, private war. A war to reshape her image, to redefine her legacy, and to carve out a place in a family and a nation that would never forget how she entered its story. Every handshake, every ribbon cut, every speech delivered was another stone laid in the fragile foundation she was trying to build. But the cracks were always there, just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to split wide open. Camilla's fight for acceptance was not without success, but it was never complete. It remained a carefully negotiated truce between memory and necessity, between old loyalties and new realities. And while the world slowly adjusted to her crown, inside the palace, resentment simmered quietly, unseen but far from dormant. Because Camilla's battle wasn't just against public perception, it was against silent resentment inside the palace, especially from one rising royal star who would soon change everything she had fought to protect. One smiles for cameras, the other watches from the shadows, but both wear crowns in waiting. And in their silence, a quiet war for the future of the monarchy brews. From the moment Kate Middleton stepped into the royal spotlight, an invisible tension took hold behind palace walls. Camilla, still fighting to secure her place in the public's fragile affection, watched as a young woman with no royal bloodline quickly became the symbol of everything the monarchy needed to survive. Graceful, poised, and seemingly untouched by scandal, Kate embodied the fairy tale the public still craved. While Camilla had battled against judgment for years, Kate won hearts with a single smile, a simple wave, a genuine laugh that carried none of the heavy history Camilla could never escape. In private, Camilla harbored doubts. She questioned whether Kate, with her middle-class roots and quiet demeanor, could truly withstand the pressures of royal life. To Camilla, it was a skepticism born of experience, but to others, it felt like the early rumblings of a deeper rivalry, one not based on jealousy, but on survival. Every new photograph of Kate, every glowing headline, was a reminder that the public's love could still be given freely. That acceptance didn't have to be begged for, earned over decades, or painfully clawed back from disgrace. It could simply be given, and Kate had it in abundance. The contrast was too stark to ignore. Where Camilla struggled to soften the public's judgment, Kate seemed to float effortlessly above it. Every charity appearance, every foreign tour, every delicate handshake reinforced the same silent truth. The monarchy's future did not rest in Camilla's careful reinvention. It rested in Kate's effortless charm, and Camilla knew it. She could feel it in the way palace aides whispered about Kate's natural touch, in the way Queen Elizabeth herself quietly favored her, seeing in Kate the same dutiful spirit she had once fought to embody. Their relationship remained polite, polished, publicly perfect. But behind the carefully staged smiles, a different story simmered. Camilla, a woman forged in survival, saw another force rising in Kate, one she could neither control nor fully outshine. In a world where every look, every gesture, every headline mattered, even unspoken rivalries could shape destinies. Camilla didn't need to hear it aloud to feel the shift. With every passing year, the monarchy's weight leaned a little more toward Kate, and a little further away from the path Camilla had fought to pave. Every shared stage, every joint engagement, carried the subtle tension of two women playing roles they both knew mattered far beyond the moment. One, building a future she would one day guide. The other, defending ground she had fought against all odds to claim. In the ruthless arithmetic of public affection, Camilla was constantly reminded of a painful reality. History rarely remembers the battles won quietly. It remembers the ones captured in the hearts of a watching world. And behind both women, one ghost continues to haunt the palace halls. A shadow neither Camilla nor Kate can ever truly outrun. She may be gone, but her presence still commands silence in the palace. Diana's shadow is no longer a memory. It is a force that bends the future of the monarchy. Diana's absence was supposed to heal with time. Yet, in the grand halls of Buckingham Palace, her name still lingers like an unspoken decree. Her legacy isn't frozen in photographs or sealed in history books. It breathes in every strained smile, every awkward silence, every glance that refuses to meet the past head-on. For Camilla, stepping into a role once envisioned for Diana was never just a personal challenge. It was an act of walking through sacred ground that would never truly be hers to claim. No matter the titles bestowed, no matter the years passed, Camilla remains a figure standing in the ruins of a dream that millions once built around the woman they called the Queen of Hearts. And no one feels that clash more deeply than Prince William. His cordial but cautious interactions with Camilla are not born from royal protocol, but from old wounds that never fully closed. Behind every polite exchange lies the memory of a childhood torn apart, a family shattered under the weight of betrayal and scandal. Camilla's presence in his father's life was the living reminder of everything lost, and no crown could soften that reality. The distance he keeps is quiet, measured, but unmistakable, a wall of frost built over years of hurt he dares not expose to public eyes. The public, too, has never fully surrendered to the idea of Camilla. Her good deeds, her patronages, her polished appearances, all of them work to build a new narrative. But they can never erase the one etched into the collective heart of a nation. Diana's image, eternally young, eternally wounded, stands in stark contrast to the crown Camilla now wears. Acceptance for Camilla is conditional, cautious, and forever overshadowed by what once was. And now, rumors swirl inside palace corridors and private briefings. Whispers that when William ascends the throne, the role Camilla fought so hard to secure may be quietly reduced, her influence gently but firmly curtailed. No royal decree has been issued, no official statement made, but within the ancient strategies of monarchy, it is often the whispers that matter most. In William's eyes, the crown is not just a relic of history. It is a living promise to his mother's memory, and the thought of her being eclipsed or replaced remains an impossible betrayal he may never allow to stand. The past is not past inside these walls. It bleeds into every decision, every public smile, every hidden maneuver for power. Diana's spirit has not been laid to rest. It walks beside every royal procession. It echoes in the hearts of millions who never stopped mourning her. In this new era of the monarchy, her memory is not a silent tribute. It is a political weapon, an emotional battlefield, and a powerful force shaping the destiny of those who thought they had outlived her shadow. And standing between all these forces, past, present, and future, is King Charles, forced to choose between love and loyalty, knowing that whichever he sacrifices, the crown itself may never fully recover. When duty and desire collide, even a king must choose who he's willing to lose. And for Charles, the cost of that choice would echo far beyond the throne. For King Charles, the weight of the crown was never just ceremonial. It was personal, bruised and stained by sacrifices he could never forget. Torn between his sister's unyielding defense of their mother's dying wish and the woman he had fought a lifetime to love freely, Charles found himself trapped in a battle where every decision would leave scars. In the cold, private chambers of Buckingham Palace, the discussions grew sharper, the silences heavier. Anne, fierce and immovable, pressed him to honor Queen Elizabeth's legacy. Camilla, poised and patient, stood for a future that demanded the past be rewritten. And Charles, for all his authority, realized too late that kingship offered no refuge from choosing sides. It wasn't rage that clouded Charles's judgment. It was grief. Years of burying love beneath duty. Years of bending under a mother's shadow. Years of watching personal happiness slip through his fingers. All of it surged back now, demanding a reckoning. In quiet defiance of the Queen's private insistence that Camilla remain only Queen Consort, Charles made his decision. He would elevate her fully, rewrite the understanding that had once been sealed by nothing less than a monarch's final command. In doing so, he wasn't just crowning a queen. He was crowning the life he had always wanted but had been denied. Anne saw it for what it was: not a simple choice of love, but a betrayal of everything their mother stood for. To her, Charles wasn't just bending history. He was fracturing it. The monarchy, built on promises, tradition, and sacrifice, was being reshaped by ambition, disguised as affection. For a woman who had spent her life upholding the invisible codes of royalty, it was a wound that went deeper than blood. Within the EI's palace walls, unseen fault lines began to form. Loyalties shifted in whispers, alliances strained under the surface. What appeared to the public as a smooth royal transition was, in truth, a silent fracture, running through the very heart of the family. Anne's confrontation at the banquet wasn't born from personal resentment. It was the eruption of decades of silent obedience being shattered in one moment of impossible clarity. King Charles, for all his longing for peace, had unleashed a storm he could no longer contain. His desire to crown Camilla had cost him something more precious than public approval. It cost him the one ally who had always protected the institution, when no one else dared to. But Anne's battle didn't end with that banquet. And now, the royal family faces a reckoning they can't postpone any longer. One sister's stand, one crown's cost, and a truth that refuses to stay buried. The battle for the monarchy's soul is no longer silent. It's erupting in ways no one can ignore. The confrontation between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla was never just about a title. It was the spark that illuminated a far greater crisis, a monarchy no longer certain of what it stands for. Anne's quiet rebellion shattered the illusion that everything behind the palace walls was united. It exposed a raw, festering truth, that loyalty, legacy, and power were now at war. And as the dust settled, it became clear that public sentiment was shifting. More and more, eyes turned not toward Camilla, but toward Anne, the steadfast daughter of a queen who had once symbolized the nation itself. Diana's legacy, too, loomed larger than ever. Her memory, her tragedy, and her unfinished dreams seemed to echo louder with each day, carried forward by the rising influence of Princess Kate, who embodied the hope of a different, nobler future. Inside the palace, the silence around Camilla's crown grew heavier. Her reign, while official, was contested not through open rebellion, but through glances, hushed conversations, and a quiet resistance that grew stronger with every misstep. Behind closed doors, whispers of reform began to take hold, talk of restoring balance, of respecting the old promises once made under Queen Elizabeth's watchful eye. What Anne had triggered wasn't just a momentary scandal. It was a reckoning years in the making, one that forced every member of the royal family to question whether the institution they served was still recognizable at all. Anne's bold challenge pushed the monarchy to an uncomfortable crossroads. No longer could they hide behind ceremony and tradition. No longer could they pretend that the shifts in power, the betrayals, and the buried wounds were simply private matters. This was now a battle for identity, for survival, and for the very soul of a nation that had always looked to the monarchy for stability. Anne's voice, once just one among many, had become the rallying cry for those who refused to watch the old world die without a fight. The crown may be eternal, but the truth, once spoken, can change everything, forever. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.